Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Friday SLO Talk. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Jarek Janio. I'm the founder of the Friday SLO Talks, and I have a pleasure to be joined by the California Assessment Coordinators Hub, or coaches for short, who are going to moderate the discussion. You can see the coaches by the logos, right? So if you could please introduce yourself very quickly, Amanda, Enrique, and Bethany.
Good morning.
Everyone, sorry, very good. I'm Amanda Tainter, Reedley College in Central Valley of California, faculty coordinator of instructional design and outcomes.
Enrique Jauregui, SLO coordinator for Fresno City College in the Central Valley of California. Welcome.
Okay, try again.
I couldn't unmute. Hi, everyone. I'm Bethany Tasaka. I am a math faculty out of San Bernardino Valley College in Southern California, and I am the outcomes faculty lead and curriculum chair. I'm very happy to be here today. I've missed this group.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. So the coaches are here to help us moderate the discussion. Oh, Trisha just came in. Trisha, say hello to everyone, please.
Hi, everyone. Great to be with you all. Like Bethany, I've missed this group. Anyway, my name is Trisha Wilging. I teach in the Reading and Teacher Preparation Department at Long Beach City College, and I serve as the college's SLO coordinator as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining us here. So again, if you have any questions, please contact one of the coaches. They'll be happy to address your issues or questions. Lisa Rabinovich, good morning. Could you please say hello, introduce yourself?
Hello, good morning. My name is Lisa Rabinovich, and I'm from San Diego Mesa College. I'm an adjunct instructor for ESL in English and part of the coaches, the group. Nice to see you all.
Right on. Thank you again. Before we begin, I just would like to remind everyone to introduce themselves in the chat. Please post any questions that you may have for our guests. And if you wish to speak during the presentation, don't hesitate to raise your hand, contact one of the coaches to articulate your questions or make a comment. We also have a Padlet in the background. So if you wish to post more questions or suggest answers, please make sure that you take a look. Amanda is going to put a link in the chat momentarily for everyone, and she's going to do it throughout the presentation. Finally, because we have so many attendees today, those who are coming late will be able to watch the webinar just outside of the main room, so that the gate closes, I believe, at around 300 people, and then it becomes a live feed. If there are any technical issues, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll be happy to address them today if we can. Our guests today are a group of higher education practitioners whose work is focused on Canvas and how the learning management system can be used to keep track of assessment of student learning. The Canvas group originated as a result of a sequence of Friday SLO Talks under the leadership of Dr. Michelle Dunbar, integrated assessment and accreditation specialist in the Office of the Provost at California State University, Dominguez Hills. Welcome. Thank you very much for your focused leadership and for making this group happen. Dr. Dunbar, would you please introduce your group?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Well, you already introduced me, so so yeah, we have three other folks with me presenting today. I'll just pass it to each person to introduce themselves. Bernice, why don't you go first, please? That's okay. Oh, we can't hear you. You're muted. Oh, you can't unmute. Here, I think I can do it, maybe. Can I do it?
Okay, thank you very much. Now I have permission. So my name is Bernice Houle, and I'm the Director of Assessment here at Tulane University.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Hewer. I'm the Assessment Analyst here at Tulane.
Sarah?
And hi, I'm Sarah Chitwood. I am the Coordinator of Institutional Assessment at Virginia Western Community College in Roanoke, Virginia.
Awesome. And then we had one other contributor. He can't make it today from Los Angeles Pierce College, Benny Ng. He contributed also to the presentation. So they're doing faculty searches, so he could not make it today, but he's here in spirit. All right, shall I jump in?
Please.
All right, wonderful. I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, no, I gotta share it over here. And 1 second. Okay, there we go. How's that look? So, right, as Jarek said, that we are a sort of a subgroup, a spin-off group from the SLO Friday Talks, which is really exciting. And I'm going to talk a bit about that and how we came to be. So first of all, what we're going to cover today, we've got lots of time built in for Q&A, so don't worry about that. We're going to go through some of the baseline considerations about Canvas and using it for SLO assessment, considerations for adoption, curriculum mapping. That will go right into some of the nitty gritty of the building the architecture for Canvas outcomes, including a demonstration that'll be by Sarah with information about faculty support and guidelines for consistency, which is very important for the data output, which is our Tulane team is going to be handling that, how we make sense of the data. So we export the data out of Canvas, we have to do something with it. You're going to see a demonstration of PowerBI, which is just one tool for dashboards that can be used. And then we'll talk about next steps for considerations like especially disaggregating data for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations, which are very important. After each of those sections, there'll be time for Q&A, like I said, so with the demonstration and some of those questions. So don't worry about that, but you can also post your questions in the chat or on the Padlet, however you like to do that. And we'll get to those pieces with the help, of course, with our moderators. And then at the end, we'll also have some time for a more robust discussion and feedback from you all, because this is really works in progress. And then some outstanding topics that we've already identified that you may also have identified and be interested in talking about a little bit more too. So we'll jump in. Here we are. You've already seen that in the invitation, and you'll get our contact information at the end also. So the subgroup, it's made up of 2-year and 4-year institutions from across the US. Here you can see the representation of the group that we've been meeting. We've got Southern California and Northern California. We've got Virginia represented, Sarah, of course, who's presenting today. We've got Buffalo State University in New York, someone from North Carolina, of course, Louisiana, Tulane, and Nevada as well. We've got, so just to give you a sense of the folks who have been involved. So yeah, as we mentioned, this assembled just from the chat function. A couple of us during other presentations, which is number 2 bullet point, inspired by 2 previous presentations on Canvas and SLO assessment. One person who's here today, Trisha Wilging, who just introduced herself, and also Shannon Jensen. And both of them really showed such exciting work that they were doing. It inspired a bunch of us, in the chat saying, oh, let's connect and talk about how we can do this. Let's follow up, because people are in different stages of trying to adopt this. Some not even maybe doing it yet. At my campus, we've just, we're moving from Blackboard to Canvas. We've been doing a staged adoption for the LMS with, I believe, full rollout for fall 23. About half the departments are there. And so I thought this is a perfect time to learn more about how we can leverage Canvas for SLO assessment while we're at the beginning of adopting this campus-wide. So that's just an example of where I am in terms of my campus. So we developed as kind of a working group, a learning community, just coming together about once a month to share our work, ideas, and resources that we, each of us have different resources on campus or other colleagues that we can share together. We've invited some guests whom we've found out are doing different things with Canvas and SLO assessment to share and demonstrate their work. We started basically last May 2022, a few of us got together. We sort of took there was a pause in the summer, which is typical. And then in the fall, we started up again, pretty much with the current configuration. We had some more folks join in, and that was in October. So we've been meeting about monthly since then. So I'm going to jump into some of the high level considerations for adoption that you might want to think about. You're going to hear a lot more throughout the rest of the presentation today too, in the details that we're going to present. But broadly speaking, you really want to kind of think about what the infrastructure and your relationship with your information technology or academic technology department, because you're going to need a lot of support and collaboration with them. For example, implementation and maintenance, that's kind of a no-brainer. One of the things is like, who right now is your Canvas administrator? Sometimes that's somebody in the IT department. Sometimes it's somebody in faculty development. So you want to think about that as one person who will be your collaborator. But the technical training on the software piece of it, the support of IT would be really helpful. Ongoing support, tech support for the both faculty and administration as things roll out. So you want to kind of think about that. The what the capacity is on your campus ahead of time. Similarly, you'll really probably find you'll want to partner with your institutional research office. So thinking about their capacity for partnership and how much they might be able to handle supporting the work you might need, which involves extracting the data from Canvas and then formatting it in some form. Data dashboards are really the most useful and helpful, because then you can distribute those to administrators and faculty to make sense of the data, really make it actionable, which is the point. And again, you're going to see a demonstration of that today. And then also just broadly thinking about the faculty use and ongoing training in terms of the assessment piece of it, the non-technical training. So that's probably going to fall to your office or your area, and who might be able to do that and provide that kind of ongoing support. Because it's very important to get faculty buy-in. It has to be relatively easy for them to use and adopt, because we don't want it to be an onerous process. So thinking about workload considerations on the faculty is important too. And a lot of that is how you set it up. So different demonstrations that we've seen, do that differently. But no matter what, faculty support is always a big piece of it. So thinking through that. Okay, so we want to just touch on here, and this really sets up Sarah's next area, but the curriculum mapping for using Canvas outcomes, the outcomes module. So curriculum mapping typically occurs at the course level, but to map for Canvas for success, this will happen at the program or the institutional level. So for example, you see here, you may have each of your courses and your course student learning outcomes that map to the program learning outcome. Or similarly, if you're mapping to institutional learning outcomes, ILOs, from your course to ILOs, you absolutely in Canvas, you'll set it up at the program or institution level. And Sarah's going to really show us that. This just gives you a sort of an illustration of how you're organizing by PLO, for example, program learning outcome. And this would be all the course data. This is actually a sample dashboard that somebody has done with a different tool. And this is getting into disaggregating for DEI. But just to show you really here how you're aggregating all the course up to the program level. And then, of course, you'll use that to make meaning of the data and identify gaps and so forth. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to go into more details about the setup and architecture of Canvas outcomes.
Good afternoon. Well, it's afternoon in my neck of the woods. I know it's morning in yours. We were at 1 o'clock here. So the first thing that I want to point out about outcomes in Canvas is that the outcomes themselves are determined by each institution differently. So here at Virginia Western, we have our program heads who get together with their faculty and they determine their program outcomes. And then through our faculty senate, they work collectively to work with their general education outcomes. In Canvas, you have 2 levels of outcomes that you can establish. One is a course level outcome, and these the faculty create themselves within their own courses. There is not any administrative access for Canvas necessary for them to put those into their courses. The caveat is that course level outcomes cannot be, the data from those cannot be grabbed in the outcomes report at the end of the semester when we are all collecting our data. Institutional level outcomes are where these SLOs have to be established, and keep in mind that we're talking about institutional level outcomes in Canvas, not necessarily institutional level outcomes that Virginia Western has or your campus has. So as far as Canvas goes, the outcomes are again determined by faculty. These may be program outcomes or general education outcomes. They are entered into Canvas at the school or program level by a Canvas administrator. Access for this level of import is not available to faculty. So that'll be a dean or a coordinator, instructional designer, or assessment coordinator. And that level of outcome is required in order for it to appear in the data that will be generated by the Canvas outcomes report.
Sorry.
I'm ready, Michelle. Thank you.
Yes, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
It didn't work.
So as far as assessing outcomes in Canvas goes, there we go. It's essentially a three-step process for faculty. The first thing they'll need to do is import the outcome into their course, the institutional level outcome into their course. Then they will attach an outcome to an assignment or to another rubric, and I'm going to give you a demonstration on that process. And then ultimately they score the outcome in their grade book once all is said and done. What we have found at Virginia Western is that, and it will be institution-wide, that supporting the faculty is absolutely key for this process to be successful. What we do is we provide workshop sessions during in-service. So faculty who want to get all of this taken care of at the very beginning of the semester, we will sit down in a big lab and help everybody do what they need to do so that they don't have to worry about it until the assessment process actually starts during the semester. We provide one-on-one assistance. We make appointments, go to their offices, sit down right next to them and talk them through the process. We have created step-by-step instruction documents, which we will share with you at the end of the presentation. And then we just keep gentle reminders throughout the semester through emails. Don't forget to be assessing your SLOs and that kind of thing. And the feedback from all of that is that it has been very, very, very helpful. It makes it much less stressful for the faculty to go through this process, keeping in mind that, assessment isn't necessarily program and general education assessment isn't something that they're doing daily. They touch on this, at various periods during the semester, and this relieves a lot of anxiety for them. We found it to be very helpful. All right, Michelle, I'm ready. Some guidelines for consistency to be aware of. You want to make sure that the SLOs of what SLOs already exist. For example, when we first started this, we had a couple of programs establish their SLO as SLO1. And then when faculty went in to import it, it was a little bit of confusion going on, and we had to go in and kind of refine things a little bit. So for example, what Virginia Western does, we will name an SLO like we offer certificates, career studies certificates, AA degrees and AS degrees, as well as AAS degrees. So we may name an SLO something like AAS.earlychildhood.SLO1. And then when you're establishing these in Canvas, you can provide a description. And in that description box, we put the entire wording of the SLO. So it's very, very clear what the faculty will be, what they will want to import as they're putting these into their classes. And it is very important to know, take a look at the other program SLOs that are out there so that wording remains unique to the program or unique to the general education assessment. And again, the SLO must be loaded in Canvas at your school's institutional level. Again, that's Canvas institutional level by someone who has Canvas administrative access. If the SLO is applied at the course level, which can certainly happen, it's just that data will be unique to the instructor. It will not appear in the outcomes report at when that is run at the end. So continuing with some guidelines for consistency, again, the unique labeling for the SLO, you want to be sure you know what other department or schools are using for wording. You don't want to give two SLOs the same name. That also becomes very, very confusing in the outcomes report. For a scoring scale, again, that's going to vary. But you want to do your best to kind of streamline it within your institution. At Virginia Western, faculty got together and determined what the scoring scale would be. For our general education assessment, they determined a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale. And for their program assessment, it's a 5, 3, 0 scale. And that was all determined by faculty, so that they had authority over how they wanted to manage percentages and scoring. And then mastery, again, the key is consistency. When you're examining the percent mastery, you want that to be consistent across SLOs too, so that you have reliable data when you pull that at the end. Just something to keep in mind, learning outcome mastered is what the Canvas verbiage is.
Great. No, I should stop sharing. Ready for the demonstration?
Yes, yep. So what I'd like to do is, let me share my screen. And I thought what I would do is talk to you a little bit about the various ways that you can import or attach the SLOs to assignments in Canvas. So to start, all of these, this option A, B, and C, this was all a really wonderful collaboration among our Canvas SLO group. Go ahead, Michelle.
That's it. I forgot. I was going to ask you guys to talk about your collaboration and I completely forgot.
Yep.
So please, I'm so glad. I'm like, wait,
Yep.
Perfect timing. There you go.
We have learned so much from each other, and it's become kind of at Virginia Western, with what I've learned from this group, it's become even more robust than what we were using before. So as of right now, we have 3 ways that faculty can assess using outcomes in Canvas. And when I first started interacting with the group, Virginia Western had been working. We've been doing this this is our 2nd year of using outcomes in Canvas. And we had attaching the outcomes to an assignment and then creating an assessment assignment. And then together with Tulane and Bernice, she had presented this, attaching the SLOs to an already established grading rubric. And we did a test run of it, and everything worked absolutely beautiful. So we added that to our pool of options for faculty. So to start with this one, for faculty who have an assignment that's already in their curriculum, they can very easily attach outcomes to that particular assignment and then assess them. The first step in the process is importing the outcomes, and I'm going to show you that process real quickly and how that works. Because all of the outcomes have been established in Canvas already, they would click their outcomes button, and then they're going to have to go find it. And what I don't know is if this account standards process will look different for each institution or not. But then your institution should be visible. And then these have all been established at, again, the institutional level in Canvas. So I'm just going to go grab we'll take a HP dental hygiene. So they have 3 established program SLOs with unique labeling, dental SLO 1, 2, and 3. And then the Canvas administrator can do this and write out the whole SLO in the description box. And then I just click add. And you can either add them all, or for example, if dental hygiene in one of their courses is assessing only SLO 1, that would be the only SLO imported for that particular class. I'm just going to click done, and then so if this is my assignment, I'm going to create a rubric. And what happens in Canvas is it automatically populates with this rubric, but however you've established yours, you can just trash that one, and then you go look for your outcomes. Just take in some of our general education. As you do this, you'll notice that there's this box, use this criterion for scoring. You will want to make sure that is checked so that once you get to the rubric, it will allow you to score it. And I'll import that to the assignment, and I'll follow that same process for each of the, and I'm importing right now general education outcomes that we use. And so then what the instructor will see is their assignment with and you can name the rubric, of course, with the SLOs attached. This particular process, option A, allows faculty to score the outcomes rubric while they are actually viewing the assignment. So that's the advantage to option A. And I will show you the grade book and how the outcomes get scored there in just a moment. So that's attaching outcomes to an already established assignment. Option B is you actually create kind of like a phantom assignment. And this is, students will not see the assignment or the rubric. And this particular process is especially useful if a faculty member is going to use more than one assignment, the average of 2 or more assignments to assess the SLO. So what will happen is this assignment gets created. I've called it, yep, it's true, Virginia Western Faculty Rock. And the process is exactly the same as if you've attached it to an assignment that you've already had. You just create the phantom assignment. It's you would probably want to unpublish it. And then you do the same thing. The automatically populated rubric you can delete, and then you just find your outcome. So for this sample, I'm going to take our business communication program. And for this particular course, they assess their program SLO 1 in Business 101. I'm going to use this criterion for scoring. I will import that to the assignment and I'll create the rubric. And it's done. And then again, when they go to grade the or average the 4 discussion boards that they do for this particular assessment, they can then go into this assignment for their outcomes. And then this is something that the students wouldn't even see. Option C, you'll notice that in this assignment, the faculty already has a grading rubric being used. And you can attach student learning outcomes to an already established rubric, and it will have no impact on the scoring of the assignments itself. So I will now edit the rubric. One important thing to note, if you're using this method, because you do not want the scores to be noted in the final average for the assignment, that will need to be unchecked. Show you one more, maybe 2. And you will be able to determine the difference between the assignment rubric and the student learning outcomes by this icon right here. And you'll notice that I've now added in these student learning outcomes, but again, the total score is 100 points that factors in only the assignment rubric scores. And I'll update the rubric. So now everything is established. Let me go to the gradebook before I actually do that. So what this looks like in the gradebook is this. So accessing the speed grader will allow you to score the rubric. And just one important thing to note is that grading the rubric in the gradebook, and this we found out just kind of by trial and error and accident. What faculty can't do is actually type in the score and click save. they actually have to hover over the box until it turns green and let it automatically populate the points box and then save it. By just typing in the score, there's no data that comes through in the outcomes report. And so that's an important piece to note when you're providing them instructions. And you can just go to the next student. Automatically populates. Once you get the hang of it, it's a very easy process. And to go back to, let me get to my, I've created 2 documents, and this I've shared with our group, and these will be available to you too at the end of our presentation today. This is Michelle, let me know if I need to make this bigger. I'm not sure how big it's going to be on the screen.
Maybe a little bigger.
Can you see that?
I can see it fairly well, but maybe just a little bit if you can. It might help some folks if they have, especially if they're on laptops. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Okay. So this is a step-by-step instruction document that we provide our faculty. And they're able to navigate it pretty easily by just clicking the link. So once they know how they want to use the SLO assessment, they can go directly to that section. Oh, it's in Canvas, that's why I'm not going to be able to do that. These links will take them directly to the section on the document that they need. With little reminders, there's screenshots, steps 1, 2, and 3 outlined. And just reminders that make sure you've imported the SLOs before you get started on this, because otherwise you're going to be pulling out your hair trying to attach something that's not there to your assignment. And it's the exact same document for general education assessment. It just specifically focuses on the general education outcomes, because we have faculty who are not necessarily involved with the program assessments. And rather than create a bunch of confusion, it was a quick find and replace and speak to specifically the gen ed outcomes. And so that document is here as well. And it looks exactly the same. And then I included a sample of what the outcomes report looks like. That a little bigger. And there's quite a bit that gets added in there that isn't necessary that I took out, but it gives you the student's name, what the assignment title is. You can filter for what the actual SLO is.
Sarah,
Scores, what scores mean. Yes.
I noticed there was a question, I think, in the chat that might relate to this, and we are kind of segueing to the Q&A part anyway. So somebody had asked about, I'm going to find it, I'm sorry, about the, how did they word it? About disaggregating the data and using a different tool, because they had, if this is sounding familiar to whoever posted that, you know how the chat, I have to find it, but oh, here it is. I'm wondering if you use another platform to disaggregate the data. We're going to talk about that and demonstrate it. But the second part of your question, it says, I've seen the reporting in Canvas and it wasn't the most user-friendly. I was wondering if this is the person who wrote this, Eliza. Is this what you were talking about, this reporting in Canvas? It is, right? Yeah.
That me? Yes.
Oh no,
yes,
I'm asking the person who asked this question.
Okay.
I was wondering if this is what Eliza was referring to. Is that right, Eliza? It probably is, right? So yeah, we've that's part of what we're going to demonstrate, that this is very limited what you have within Canvas. There's not really a lot of analytics per se, and that's where exporting the data and then doing something with it, usually in partnership with somebody who can, you know, build a dashboard or something such as your institutional research office. Yes. And Bernice, the Tulane team is going to demonstrate that in a moment. So does that answer your question? I think it gets at that. So yeah, we haven't seen anything more robust within Canvas developed yet from all the folks we've talked to and the demonstrations we've seen. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
I was just going to say, I can remember the first time I looked at the outcomes report and I just had to put it down and walk away because it was so overwhelming to look at. So yes, I relied very heavily on our institutional research office to work their magic with these numbers. So yeah.
And we can really open up to
Okay.
questions since that launched the first question. This is our Q&A portion for Sarah for the
Sure.
demonstration and the different. Bernice, you want to chime in? I see you unmuted.
No, I was
Okay,
just
you're
preparing.
ready. Okay. Yeah, and please, I was trying to scan the chat to keep track of that. But if you want to raise your hand and unmute and ask a question, even if you post it in there, that would be great. We've got quite a few about the amount of time
Michelle?
set for. Yes.
Yeah, on the chat there was we're asking it all depends on if what platform you're using. If Canvas communicates with that platform, right? Not all platforms communicate with Canvas.
Can anyone answer that?
So,
Yeah.
So like you, Michelle, we used Blackboard for years and then transitioned to Canvas, and we've had Canvas for 5+ years now, I think, and just started implementing assessment in Canvas. I don't know. So as far as what other platforms, I'm not sure. We use Excel, we have Tableau, and that's what we use to kind of create our information for the faculty. And that's about all I can provide for that particular question. If there's anything anyone else can add.
Right. This is a perfect time to mention that we are a learning group. We're just sharing what we've done so far at Jarek's request. So yeah, so anyone in the room, please, if I'm sure folks have different experiences and different levels of experience with Canvas. So if anybody else has an answer to that, either to post it or raise your hand and answer it. Janie, I see your hand up. If you want to can they unmute and ask?
Hi there. My question has to do with, you have unique names for the SLOs, but at least at our college, SLOs for the course and program level change fairly often, and at least every 5 years. But I mean, they don't always change, but it's not uncommon for people to say, I could word this better, I'm going to change it, or we're no longer teaching this because something changed in the field, and now our third SLO is a different SLO because we got rid of number 2 from last time. And so, and then for us, we do course and program aggregate assessment before courses are updated. So it's sort of on a rolling 6-year cycle. So quite often when people are analyzing their data, they may have more than, I'm just trying to figure out how you would do that to get consistency across the naming conventions or across the language, or how do you handle it if like the exact same SLO was SLO 3 years ago, but now it's SLO 2 because one of the earlier ones was removed?
I am so glad you asked that question, because two parts to your question. One I've experienced, the other is a little bit of an unknown yet for us. I do know that you can go in and you can, for example, early childhood development SLO 1, we can go in and we can completely rename that SLO. What I don't know, the unknown part of that is what happens to the historical data. That's the part I don't know yet. Because we've been doing this for just 2 years, this is our 2nd year, and our SLOs change every 3 years. That will be an adventure, I think. And my intention is to talk to Canvas about what will happen to that historical data, because I don't want to lose that, of course. But I do know that once you go in and change an SLO, it overrides anything else. So, and I've done that. I've reworded SLOs, I've changed the numbers around so that they're more easily identifiable, and that works well. The unknown part of that, like I said, is the potential for some historical data being gone, and I don't want that to happen.
I think a big thing to consider is thinking of these issues ahead of time, at the time that you're setting up Canvas, as opposed to just going in and starting to do it, and think about the different scenarios and what may happen, like the change in SLOs. So a lot of institutions say, well, we're not going to use numbers. We're going to say this is, GE for general education, whatever coding they want to use to try to indicate what that SLO is with abbreviated words or whatever it may be. So that there isn't confusion of SLO 3 is now SLO 2. And then if you look over history, what are you pulling out? So the intentionality of setting up Canvas is going to be crucial in the long term with using this for the long term.
Thanks, Bernice. Did you want to add anything, Alexandra, or we covered it from your?
Maybe just utilizing the descriptions that you have available. You can write a description for each outcome. So if things change and maybe you don't know what an outcome is just by looking at the title, if you always have a description there, then somebody can figure it out.
Awesome, thanks. Kristen, I see your hand.
Hi, thank you. We've been at my university, we've been using rubrics with our program learning outcomes, but what I find is we want our program learning outcomes to be broad for the program. But I've created the first assignment where perhaps they'll get their communication PLO, they'll get credit for that. So how it looks on my rubric right now is I have like my criteria for the presentation, then I have to put the program learning outcome below it. And so me and the TAs have to go in and click twice for everything. Is there any way or any future plans to like be able to embed that behind so the students maybe don't see the program learning outcome, but have it as like part of your rubric, where you have your criteria for your assignment and it is this broader program learning outcome of, understanding molecular interactions, but everybody's doing it differently. So like 70% and up is success at that PLO for me, but I have to do that, then advise everybody to click that they achieve the program learning outcome. I'm just wondering if anybody knows a more seamless way to integrate them like behind a rubric, if that makes sense.
That's a very good question. And so I think I think one of the important things that we're learning here is, how can we improve this process? And I think that would be an absolutely fantastic option. And I think anything like that, contacting Canvas and I think there's that infrastructure group, I think. But again, as a group, it's very useful to be able to say, there's a wide community doing this. Could you make this possible, or is it possible? I don't know of anybody. I would like to know if there's somebody doing that. That'd be very useful.
Mm-hmm. I see also in the chat, Jacqueline, you're doing such a great job answering some of these questions. Jacqueline's been meeting with us as part of the group also. So Jacqueline, if you do want to unmute and offer any, not to put you on the spot.
I just have an opinion on every freaking little thing. So I'm probably better off in the chat.
Okay.
But thank you. And it's nice to see you guys. And I'm so sorry I wasn't able to better participate in this. Well, you're doing such a great job of sharing the things that we've talked about.
Oh, great. Thanks. Well, thanks for manning the chat a bit and helping with some of this stuff. I had seen another hand, but I guess the person changed their mind. Did any of the moderators see some questions? You're doing better, I'm sure, reading the chat than I am, because I'm trying to do both. But
Michelle, yeah, they're asking for any resources. I'm going to share Fresno City College page, but they're asking about any other resources, how to use Canvas, how to assess Canvas, in Canvas, use rubrics in Canvas, things of that nature. So I guess, for California community colleges, I don't want to, be scare the other groups from California. Canvas is unique to community college, so it's, if you can, say something to that matter.
Yeah.
There was a question in the chat. Is there a concern about bias when the faculty are assessing their own students, or that there is only one person assessing the work?
Well, that's one of the topics, actually, our additional topics that we haven't got to. The idea of juried scoring, which is a very standard practice, especially program learning outcomes, where student work is collected across various courses, right, to demonstrate a program learning outcome. And there's a jury of faculty, may or may not include the instructor, sometimes the instructor, but plenty others, who then score using the rubric. And that's typically or historically done outside of Canvas. And one of our questions is, can Canvas be used to do that? So that we still have that to really address that concern, that potential concern. And I do have, there's a group, I've identified at least a few folks across the country that I've been talking with them about how they're doing it. It seems quite cumbersome to try to set it up that way, but if anyone's interested in that, that's also, you can let me know. In addition to this whole group, if you wanted to join this group, I was going to say, and I did put it in the chat, please email me directly and you can say, hey, please add me to the list for this group, and then also the juried scoring. We'll get to a slide about that at the end as well. So yeah, there's lots of different topics that, so many offshoots that we can go to really explore a bit more of. But to the point of bias, yeah, I think that really comes down to how the each institution, each faculty sort of decide about that. Yeah, anybody want to weigh in on that? Because that's a great conversation we can have. Yeah, Carlos, is it to that point or a new question? Oh, maybe you put his hand
Both
down.
points, actually. Thank you so much.
Please, yeah.
The way that we are doing in our college is that the panel can get added as a TA into the course, and they can do it. They can grade that whatever assignment. So that's how we're doing in our college. Also in regards of old SLOs that are no longer used, what I'm doing is that I created a folder that says old SLOs or retire SLOs, and then you change the name and the faculty will know that they're not going to pick those.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful. Awesome. Anyone else? I'm sure that conversation has come up regarding, the instructor and the potential bias when they're scoring for learning outcome mastery.
I'm fascinated by this conversation coming very exclusively from a 2-year, that it seems like this is where the 2-year and 4-year practices might differ. One of the things that we always so strongly advocate for in the 2-year is the faculty control, over assessment, and we know our assignments. So I don't really have anything to contribute, but just it's from an outsider's perspective and looking only from a 2 years wind. And I also wanted to make sure that people understand the distinction that we do have 2 years and 4 years represented here, in case there's any other 2-year people going, what are they talking about? We can't do that. So that's one thing that I just wanted to say.
Yes, very, very important point. Absolutely. Because so much more at the 2-year, and I'm at a 4-year, happens, at that course level, like you said, and that faculty control. And then the 4-year, and this is really the conversation, even when I brought it up on our campus about, hey, could we use Canvas, for this? It's like, well, but we do it the way I described, collecting, having a panel, a jury, a faculty at the program level. So, then that's where, okay, can we use Canvas and will it be useful? Will it just be too cumbersome? Those are some of the questions I'm trying to answer. So yeah, thank you so much for that. That's such a great point to clarify, and our audience is varied here. Other questions to this point? We still have some time set aside for the Q&A here. Yes,
they're asking me privately message. Does your Canvas, in Canvas, does your syllabus transfer automatically to Canvas?
Does what automatically?
Your syllabus?
Oh.
I know it's a different topic.
Yeah. Does anyone know that one?
I know if you do a course copy, yes, it will automatically transfer over. Moving from one semester to the next, yes, it absolutely does.
Another point I wanted to make, and make sure I make it explicitly to the point Enrico was asking from one of the chats earlier, just the importance of collaboration. Our group, which is made up of folks from different institutions, I talked about some of the partnerships and collaborations internal to your institution that you'll want to do just to be able to implement and to even consider adopting. But yeah, I would encourage folks to, because a lot of these questions, well, number one, if you have Canvas, we should have some sort of Canvas support, right? That's part of your package. We have our academic technology department, again, who right now they're focusing on supporting faculty for just the transition from Blackboard to Canvas for their course delivery and curriculum and so forth. But they, I'm in conversation with them too about the outcomes piece of it. So yeah, just really encouraging folks to think about who you might be able to collaborate with and partner with in this process, because it is so complex and there's so many different layers and to the implementation, to thinking through some of these considerations. So that's just one piece we also wanted to mention as a takeaway, to really think about how you can partner. And again, if you want to join this group, you can email me. I'll put it in the chat again. Yeah, we can go from there. So
there's also a couple of questions came up about support services and how to learn more. There is a Canvas community that Canvas oversees. And so I just put in the chat just a link for one specific thing that I started to investigate. And that was actually a question that was in the chat with, does this work with quizzes or exams and specific questions? So I encourage folks to sign in for the Canvas community, and then do a search for what you're looking for to see how other folks may have solved whatever challenges you may be seeing as well.
Great, thank you.
There is another question in the chat, and this might be for, I know there's a technical person that was going to answer it, but I am the institutional research lead at a 2-year community college. I'm interested in the technical process to obtain the data from Canvas. I know that the IT department is setting up a REST, all caps, connection to the Canvas system for data. Is the data available that way, or is it necessary to log into Canvas to download the SLO files? And Jane, if you wanted to unmute to elaborate on that, feel free to do so as well.
So what we'd like to do, that might be a really good segue, Michelle, to the data piece of this workshop.
Perfect.
Or presentation. And if we don't answer that question by the end, please, let's bring it up again so that we make sure we answer it. So Alexandra now is going to start sharing her screen. And we're going to be talking about making sense of the data and creating a data dashboard and various considerations in order to do that, or to make the most of the data that you get.
Here we go.
Okay, so important things to keep in mind is when you pull the data out, and what we've been doing to start to answer that last question is we have had an administrator go into Canvas and export the data file that has all of the SLOs in there. We don't have them cut and paste and choose what they want. We have them pull the entire data file out. What's going to considerations that you need to pay attention to or questions to ask is who's going to have access to the dashboard. Individual faculty, program or department chairs, those charged with assessment, university or school assessment administrators. Answers to those questions are going to help you determine what tool or tools that you could or should be using to create a dashboard. Whether it's Tableau, if your institution has already invested in Tableau, or potentially PowerBI if you're a Microsoft institution or want a free, try to use Microsoft for other offices. Also, considerations will help with what data you want to make available on the dashboard, taking into account sensitive data, taking into account the level of granularity. The more sensitive the data, the less widely distributed you want your dashboard to be. How's the dashboard going to be used? Strictly for information purposes, to see what's happening in a point in time, see what's happening over time. You're just going to be looking at it to export this for accreditation self-studies. So think ahead. about how the dashboard's going to be used. What questions need to be answered in your dashboard? What are you going to display? What data will you need to answer those questions? And then how are you going to display those results? And then be thinking about how the dashboard's going to need to be scalable. Don't try to do everything all at once. Don't try to show everything all at once. But when you're setting up your initial dashboard, are you going to need to have additional semesters in there? Likely, yes. Are you going to potentially want to have a dashboard that has additional programs, additional learning outcomes, potentially the change in learning outcomes? Keep all of these things in mind before you do anything else. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what questions you want answered. And this is all part, these slides are all part of the intentionality of creating a dashboard and trying to make sense of the data that's being collected. So here at Tulane, we met with a team from our School of Professional Studies, and they became our clients. This group consisted of program chairs and instructional designers who were starting to investigate using Canvas outcomes to collect the data. And they were specifically interested in the general education core curriculum, because that can be a bear with data coming in from different courses, different programs, transient faculty. So when discussing the need for a dashboard, in addition to answering the questions that we had just talked about on the previous slide, such as who's going to have access and how's it going to be used, we wrote up a proposal that included the questions that the dashboard was going to initially address. So what you see in front of you on this slide are those questions that we agreed for the initial dashboard. Given a specific learning outcome, what % of students obtained mastery? What % of students are in each category or scale for mastery? Given a specific learning outcome, which courses assess that learning outcome? That's part of the mapping. Which assignments assess the learning outcome? And given a course, which learning outcomes were assessed? This is what we agreed to with our clients, with that group. They wanted more. Likely we'll get more, and we'll talk about that later with the next steps. But we needed to start somewhere, and we felt that we agreed that these were the most crucial questions to answer. By having these questions, that helped us provide a framework for setting up the dashboard. And it essentially told us when the dashboard was complete enough for us to share and get feedback. And that's actually where we are today. So one thing that we're going to be looking at before I turn it over to Alexandra is to explore the raw data exported from Canvas. Once we had the questions that the school wanted answered, we needed to look to see with the data we were getting, how much of that data that got exported from Canvas will need to be manipulated. We needed to look at what columns they provided, what we would need to answer our questions, and do we need to clean up the data, and how and where are we going to do that data cleansing and potentially manipulating the data to help make sense of it. So I'm now going to turn it over to Alexandra, who's actually going to show you the process that we went through.
Okay. Everybody can see this screen? Did I change it? Okay.
Very small, but it's okay.
I know how to make it bigger. Okay. So when you download, when you export the data from Canvas, you're going to be given an Excel spreadsheet with these columns that you see here. So for each assessment of a learning outcome, and for each student is going to be a row. So after you get this data, you might want to make some additions. So if I scroll over here to, this is about where my export ended. And the following columns to the right is what I added. So when I started this process, I wasn't exactly familiar with Power BI myself. I was much more comfortable doing sort of data cleaning in Excel. But by actually learning Power BI and making these changes within this program, this dashboard now becomes sustainable for me. So if I want to upload a new semester, the columns to the right-hand side over here will populate for me, and I won't have to do this semester after semester. So if you're, maybe like me and a little more timid to learn something new, I really encourage you to do so, as it'll help you in the long run. And, this is a process that I started learning really not that long ago. So some of the changes that you might also have to make is, for example, adding things like a term name or separating out your subject and course number. This might just help you while you're creating your dashboard to make things a little bit easier and look a little bit better within. Another thing that I want to draw your attention.
Can I interrupt? So just to clarify, Alexandra didn't do this in Excel. So she pulled the data out and she's doing it in Power BI because it is then sustainable. She's programming it once, and she's not adding data to this data file. She's just parsing and manipulating the data that Canvas gave us. So that's an important consideration, is there's nothing added to it. She doesn't have to go outside of this data to get, for example, the semester and term name. She just parsed it out the way she thought she might need it for the dashboard.
Right, so I'm using the information provided within the Excel document. And then within Power BI, I'm using a formula to then parse that out. And that way, when information is added, that will populate itself. So I don't have to do that every semester. That was very important. I also want to draw attention just to the data itself. Some things that can make this process difficult is if you have inconsistencies. So, just making sure that, for example, the LO names or using codes that are reliable to you, like maybe the Canvas course code for your university. So that's just a quick look at the data side. And next I'm going to go into the actual dashboard itself. So out of that, I created this dashboard. So first I'm going to go through each component of the dashboard. Then I'm going to talk about how the questions that Bernice mentioned earlier helped guide the creation of this. And then I can go into some of the questions that you guys might have. And that's just because as I go through it, I might answer your questions as I go. So starting at the top left, I have the term name. So this helps show which term for the data that we are looking at. And I also have the titles here. So this is the title of the learning outcome that I'm currently selected. And as we go down through this middle section, I have the charts that answer the questions that I was looking at. So at the top of the page, we have some of the most important information. You always want to make that the most accessible for whoever's using the dashboard. So in this case, percent achieved mastery is really what the program we were working with was looking at. And just as a disclaimer, this is all demo data that was created by myself. I'm not sure if I mentioned that at the beginning, but this is all demo. We also have the number of assessments that's being shown in each chart. I have the percent of assessments that achieve the learning outcome mastery as a pie graph. And then I have it broken down right below it for each category that it's being assessed on. Below that, we have a number breakdown for each category. And you can also see here that I've included absences and not reported in Canvas. So in the tables above, that the absent and the not reported in Canvas is not being included in those calculations. So it's a very important distinction. So moving on to the left-hand side of the dashboard, this is what is controlling the dashboard here. So I have the Gen Ed learning outcomes. So these are the learning outcomes that we are looking at. You can really only select one at a time. For us, this is intentional because each outcome has a different purpose. So for us, we didn't want to aggregate any of that. It may be different at your university. That's really up to you to decide. Then after you select your outcome, you'll be shown which department is assessing that outcome, and only those will show up. You can start to parse that out if the user so chooses so. You'll also see the course in which assessments are being used for that outcome. On the right-hand side, this is just a lookup for the outcomes. We felt that this was important to include because an administrator looking at this dashboard, they might not know, which departments are assessing what. And so having this lookup table where they can select a department and then see what outcomes are mapping to which department or course, that could be very helpful. And nothing on this right-hand side is affecting what's in the middle or the left. So that's just a breakdown of what the heck we're looking at here. And then I can start to go into why these decisions were made using some of the questions that were guiding us.
So let's see if the dashboard actually answers the questions. Given a specific learning outcome, what % of students obtained mastery?
Right, so that's being answered right here at the top and also in this pie chart right here. So that's what informed that decision.
Can you click on a different learning outcome so we can see it change?
Sure. Another example. You also might, choose one and then want to go further and look at one department, perhaps. That can make a big difference.
What % of students were in each category or scale?
So that can be found using this second chart here. So that's the % in each scale.
Given a specific learning outcome, which courses assess that learning outcome?
Great, so that is actually the second part of this left-hand side where we can see each course. I've also provided the department for those as well.
Which assignments assess the learning outcome in each course?
And then that can be found right here on the bottom.
Can you click a few so we can see how those assignments change?
Sure.
Either change a learning outcome, department, a specific course.
So for this assignment, you can see once I've clicked it, it's bumped to just this one course because that's the only course that was using this assignment. That's the department it belongs to. And then we can see the breakdown here. And this can make a big difference. For this one, this was not used. You can see here, oh, it doesn't look like it was reported in Canvas. This can tell you a lot about, who is using these outcomes, who's actually grading them, and how it's affecting your data.
So that view that Alexandra just showed us with the 13 students or 13 assignments not reported in Canvas, that tells the program administrator that the instructor had it in Canvas. It was part of their rubric, but they did not score it in Canvas. So it was there, but it wasn't scored.
Right.
So a good question came up was who has access to the dashboard? So we created this dashboard with the our clients being our School of Professional Advancement for program administrators, the associate dean, the dean, and the instructional technologists. This was not created for individual faculty. So individual faculty will not have access to this information. This was strictly for program and institutional assessment.
Are there more questions coming in?
So the one question was, why can't faculty see it? And that was a conscious decision on our part for this specific dashboard. That's not what we created it for. So if a department chair would like to share components of this with their faculty, they can export the screens and share those components with the faculty. And again, that's part of the consideration, part of the questions that you ask yourself and that you try to get answered before you create the dashboard.
Right. You should always be aware of what is the intent of the dashboard and how is it going to be used. In our case, we didn't want to show, specific sections, and we didn't want to show, instructor names. That was not the goal of this dashboard specifically. And that can really help with your creation of the dashboard. How are you going to set everything up? It's really important to try and define at the beginning.
Amanda?
Just a logistics question. I apologize if you had already answered this. The spreadsheet that you get from Canvas, is there an automation that's loading it into Power BI, or is that something you're manually downloading and uploading yourself?
So for us, and also it's important to note that I'm still a new Power BI user. So for us, we've just planned to re-upload it in. There could be a way and I think there is a way for you to automatically do that if you're savvy enough to do so, by all means. But at the point that I am in my learning journey with Power BI, I will just be pasting it in and reloading it. But all that work is already done with all the formulas. So it's really should just be a one-step, once a semester type of process.
And like Sarah, this is our first attempt at using and displaying and trying to make sense of the data. Well, our first attempt that we're showing others. And so it will evolve. Just like all the questions in the chat about including or not including faculty or intent. This is all going to evolve. So it was really important for us to know, to get a sense of what we were doing, why we were doing it, who was going to see it, how was it going to be used. And we wanted to pull that data out because we weren't even familiar with what the data looked like, what that raw data looked like, to see what needed to get adapted and programmed into Power BI through Power BI.
Enrique, I see your hand.
Bernice, you just answered my question, and just the elaboration. That's something that was key on your intent. But as you progress in the future, will faculty have those discussions in department meetings or whatever?
I am 90% confident that what the program chairs are will be finding from the data on their dashboard will be discussed with their faculty, likely in the aggregate, and then findings specific to individual courses might be between the program or department chair and that faculty member. That's my best guess, looking through my crystal ball.
I was thinking that question about the technical question, that points to one of those collaborations where I think probably the IT folks could help answer whether there's an automated process that could, export and import between those two systems, on your campus, each person's campus. But I see another question here that is about the dashboard. It might be technical, but I think it's also a philosophical question. It may or may not be the right time, but I'll throw it out there and see what you all think, Alexandra and Bernice. They're asking, can you use Power BI to show a visualization of a comparative analysis of multiple data points or multiple measures of the same SLO? I think like here we're aggregating it. So I think they're saying, right, I don't know if you want to unpack that or if it's worth, if we can answer that now or not, or is it, what do you all think on that?
The short answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The longer answer is we're not there yet.
Okay.
And so we'll show you in a slide or two what our next steps are likely to be, will be, and then has the potential to be. And for an institution that may want to see that information, absolutely Power BI can do that. We are not likely to put that high on our list at this time if we have to pick and choose the activities that where we spend our time. The other piece is trying to get a use case for every request. So when we were initially talking with our clients, they wanted the world. And now that they see what we had agreed to give them, they want the world plus. And so it's important to get a use case and then to prioritize what you're going to provide and a time frame so that it's realistic.
Enrique, did you have a question?
Yes, Bernice, a question. I know that for us, we, our intent was to share the information or the data with students. That was a long process, right? What is your intent for that, sharing the SLO data with your students?
We have not had that conversation. I'm just happy we're able to share it with the program administrators at this point. So we have not had that conversation yet.
Yeah, and that conversation is going to be very hard. It just because we went through it, and so it's very hard discussions to have. Thank you.
So we have one more question that we haven't answered that our clients wanted, and that is, did we look at the given a course which learning outcomes were assessed?
We haven't done that yet. But so that is that left-hand side here. So if you would to take a specific course, seeing what outcomes are being assessed within that course. Right, so this could be really helpful for somebody who maybe knows which courses they're looking at, but they don't really know much about the outcomes exactly. And this doesn't control any of this, any of the charts seen here. And that felt very important for us to provide.
Would you like to go back to the slides? If folks
really quickly, did you answer one question? Just said Alexandra, especially if folks are giving you lots of kudos for especially this being your first new Power BI user, first they want to know, someone wants to know, how long did it take you to learn to do this, or this piece, what you've got so far?
It's I guess complicated answer because I didn't have all the time in the world to learn this every day. Yeah, but I did set some time aside every week for about an hour to start to learn this with somebody in my office who is our local Power BI expert. So we did that once a week. For this specific dashboard, I think a few months we've been working on it once a week. But you know, if you're looking for a place to start, I would say LinkedIn Learning was my first place that I started, if your university provides you with that. Also finding, you know, the people in your community in your offices who are familiar with something like this, or just plain old YouTube is always helpful. But one of the things I was really happy about when I started learning this was there are a lot of similarities to Excel. So, you know, it wasn't a completely new process for me. You know, I noticed, you know, pretty quickly, some of the formulas were generally pretty similar. And so that made it a lot easier to pick up.
There are also a variety of user groups. So when we're talking about partnerships, so internally with Tulane, they just started a Power BI users group because that's our dashboard of choice at this point. I believe AALHE, the professional organization for assessment professionals, I believe they have a Power BI users group as well. So there are a number of Power BI user groups that that folks could reach out to and participate in.
That's true for Tableau also, as I understand, yeah, too. And I'm sure that's probably true for most of the dashboard software options that are out there. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I forgot about that, Brittany. Such a great resource. Awesome.
Okay, well, I guess I will go back to the slides. This is my slide here, lessons learned. This is just things that I experienced, I learned while creating the dashboard. So yeah, starting right off what we were just talking about, educate yourself before creating the dashboard, you know, reach out to those experts in your community. And this can include, you know, Power BI experts, technical experts, but also department and program experts. They know this stuff more than you do. They might know the outcomes more than you do, or the courses or the assignments. You know, that's all very important, understanding the landscape of your data before diving into it. And definitely take advantage of some of those online resources, whether that's a user group is excellent, or just, you know, online resources like LinkedIn Learning or YouTube. And certainly I saw in the chat, Microsoft as well has some great resources. Think about your dashboard structure. So list the data out that you will need and what manipulations may need to occur. Try to do this ahead of time, you know, be prepared. You know, we ran into things when I was creating this dashboard where all of a sudden, oh, I need this, right? And then you add it on. Try and think of that type of stuff beforehand. That's really useful. Think about the dashboard layout as well before you start putting things together. You know, by all means, play with what you know think might go somewhere. But you know, having an idea of how you want it to look is really helpful. Always think about, you know, what is the most important information, what should be the most accessible. Think about your user first. And also consider hierarchical structures that make sense. One of the questions that I answered with this dashboard is, using a course, what are some of the learning outcomes that map to it? Originally, I had just a course lookup first. Then I realized from an administrator's point of view, it made a lot more sense to provide that department above it, you know, because that's how you think. So thinking of all those things beforehand, really helpful when creating a dashboard.
Okay, so the next steps for us, our next steps would be to expand some of the filters and visualizations. We didn't actually get to answer all of the questions that our school wanted initially. Important would be visualizations that show results over time, from one semester to the next or from 1 year to the next. We actually only had from them 1 semester of data. That's how new this was for everyone. And Alexandra is the one who created multiple semesters in anticipation of getting spring data as our next set of data that would be imported into the dashboard. So then we're going to start to focus on looking at the data over time. We may possibly provide information for individual sections. We may possibly include instructor name if it's attached to a section, a course, or a section. Right now, in our dashboard, we actually don't have it broken down by sections. We have it aggregated. The lowest level is by course. So if a course has multiple sections, that will not get disaggregated at this time. And we may choose to incorporate that. We also, this is for the general education, for collecting with the general education core curriculum learning outcomes. So our intent is to start to use this structure for program learning outcomes, program-based learning outcomes. And essentially, I want to start with those that have external accreditations because they're much more structured with how they want and need the data represented. So I think to try to start to get some buy-in, this is a proof of concept that we have. And I think that it will help us to show these other departments and programs that it could be helpful to them with their external accreditations. And right now it's a prototype that we're going to build upon. And that's it.
Oh, do you want to speak a little, Bernice, to the DEI, disaggregating these? Yeah, I know it was on your slide, but you might speak.
So
I promised it in there. I told someone you were going to speak about it.
So we're trying to be very intentional with what we provide. And the next filter that we add actually is going to be mode of delivery instead of the more of the demographic information, student demographics. So that we can get a sense of the online versus on-site courses and blended courses. For the demographics, we really need to be careful with how much we slice and dice and how many filters we make available, because we want to maintain that level of anonymity. We want to try to be sensitive to the students. And we have to be very careful then with who has access to the data. And that's again where if we have a dashboard that where faculty are going to have access, and then we disaggregate too low to too minute of a grouping, then we're not comfortable with letting that data out of our office and sharing it with others. So we are going to need more checks and balances, more data, and more programming to say, okay, Alexandra's going to be learning if the results are fewer than, let's say, 5, we're not going to show it. So there are ways to try to get around it. And I think once we start to get more data into the system, we will have more leverage and more knowledge and a bit more of a comfortable way to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And I would say, oh, I'm sorry, Alexander, were you saying
Oh,
something?
that's okay. You also have the option to group. So like, say you have these filters within your university that can identify a student's like race, for instance. You can group that within Power BI to maybe just be a more general category like BIPOC or something to try and help with anonymity. But really, if you have really small classes, it still might be, kind of tricky. So it's
Yeah,
just
I was
something
gonna
to keep in mind.
I was going to say that threshold, I would even set it at 10 as the minimum. But like you're saying, once you get more data, some other ways to really look at equity gaps and to analyze for diversity, equity, and inclusion is to combine across maybe multiple semesters. Again, you have to think about how this works for your situation, your institution. Do you want to keep it that one faculty who teaches that class maybe over 3 semesters and your ends are large enough then on the different race and ethnic groups or gender or whatever different categories that might be meaningful? Because if you just, or is it okay across the course regardless of the the faculty, and but collapsing them in that way and aggregating where you can get larger numbers. But yeah, if you're just starting out building that, it might take some time. So, and of course DEI is always very important, but even more so these days. Like we want data, we want information, we want to act upon it quickly. So it is tough, but those are things, conversations to have with your faculty and with your assessment folks and IR and so forth.
And it is possible. And now that we have a structure, it shouldn't take us 4 months to put that in once we do have enough data and we're intentional about what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And again, it's that starting with the question, what are we trying to answer, right?
Yes,
As
absolutely.
Michelle said, are we, looking at it over academic years, et cetera?
Yeah. And this is also, again, where your institutional research office or whatever it's called on your campus is very, very important, because Canvas doesn't hold the demographic data, nor it probably shouldn't. I don't think it does. I don't think it has the capacity. Again, some formats may be different. It might depend, but right. And so you really do need that partnership with IR minimally to even get that at the student level so that you can then look into that. Anyone else want to add in about, the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation is very robust and broad. Please, anybody want to chime in on that? Other ways to handle small numbers that you've used or have heard?
One thing I can jump in there and add is on our assessment plans, we did provide all of the DEI statistics for our faculty, and what we discovered was, because we are assessing programs, you could have, even though an SLO may be assessed in a class, of the 25 students who are in the class, 5 are actually program place students. And so that really created some, what we call coinky dinks in our numbers. And the DEI information became very identifiable for students. And so we quit including that piece in the assessment plans. And our plan is exactly as you said, Michelle, because the student learning outcomes live a life of about 3 years, we're going to then start looking at that over the course of those 3 years. And trend data, just start looking at the trend data for it.
Right. Yeah. And this is our Q. We've set aside some time for the Q&A about the dashboards, the dashboard and the considerations regarding data. So please, I've been watching the chat, and I don't think I've overlooked any. We actually got caught up a little bit, but raise your hand if you do have any other questions, please. And
Michelle, did you want to go to any of the preloaded questions on the?
Oh, we have some slides. Yeah, I'm going to get there, but
okay.
I just want to make sure in case. Yes, thank you. I have a slide for it. Yeah, we can get up to the questions, but yeah, we can if there's no other. Well, one of the things we wanted to know is what feedback do you have on the dashboards? We saw some in the chat, which is great. Thank you for the positive feedback. And also, what does it may prompt ideas about what are the dashboard needs on your campus that you think that you have that that are there, like maybe that we, don't have yet. As Bernice said, this is a developmental process and we're just getting started, but what ideas does it prompt for you? We had the one about potentially having multiple measures, right? Or different for one SLO. That's one thing that it sounds like maybe that campus is really interested in that. Bernice, you mentioned over time. Of course, that's always interesting to see how things are changing. Any other thoughts or feedback on the dashboards themselves or the needs that your campus you think have? This is the audience engagement part. I'll pull up the, oh, wait, I did that before I did the questions as well. So we'd also like, feedback also going back to the earlier for Sarah on about the setup and how she demonstrated the architecture. Any ideas about that you'd like to share? Let me go to I got to do share first. That's why I'm all this tech stuff. Right?
While you're setting it up, I have a question about the Canvas outcome, just again, a logistic process. How often are you going in and checking to make sure when changes are made? That's one of the concerns that I've had on our campus in looking to do that is what will be my timeline in making sure the most up-to-date outcomes are available, and what timeline will I push out to faculty letting them know that once a year, or is it aligned with your curriculum process? So just logistics on that.
So it's once a year. And so at the end of our fall in-service, any new student learning outcomes have to be established, and there's a deadline date. I think it typically is a month and a half into the semester. And by that time, they've figured out what they want to assess, where they want to assess it, and I can make any changes then. So at each fall semester annually.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. So we thought we'd also ask a bit about, well, you know what, let me come, I want to, because I know some folks are dropping off. Let's touch on outstanding topics. And then for those who want to stay and talk a little bit more about collaborations. So some of the, do you want to take the first one, Bernice? Since I know that was
Sure.
a piece. Yeah.
So one of the things that came up in the chat that we have not addressed yet is using Canvas outcomes for data other than being collected through a rubric. So Canvas does have what they call a new quizzes feature, and it does align with Canvas outcomes. And I have not yet explored, but will be. And I think it's going to be important as part of our adoption for other departments, exploring that new quizzes feature and how to set it up in a very similar way that Sarah did with the different ways to set it up, what it looks like in the raw data to see whether we can, it can just get a kind of included with the raw data that Alexandra is now used to seeing with the data coming in from rubrics. So that's going to be a piece that we're going to be looking at next.
Great, thank you. Also, just for those who may be having to run to things, I did drop in the chat some files that we mentioned we were going to share with you. The ones Sarah showed us, some guidelines for specific to her campus, and then another one about the implementation. That's a Word document, so you can update that. And then also the slides. There's a not the PowerPoint, but a PDF of our slides. So those are all in the chat now as well. So one of the other outstanding topics, I just learned recently that apparently Canvas acquired Badger, and they're integrating that in. It may already be done. So that's an interesting question about how faculty may want to use that for badging for students, for whether they want to use it at all, and if they do, then establishing again pretty much I would think it would be faculty decision about, what those requirements would be to earn badges and how they want to use it, if at all in there. So that's another thing. Has anyone had any experience with that yet, or know anything about that they can share? Because that's an interesting topic too. I'll let you raise your hand if there is one. I already touched on that third point about the juried scoring using panel scoring. So if you're interested, if someone's doing this already or interested in exploring it further, you can email me in the same way and just specify that you're really interested in that. Because like I said, I have a small conversation that just started, at least with a few folks who are using Canvas for that. Yeah, Amanda, please.
I don't necessarily have anything constructive to contribute, just more of a reflection. I always go back and forth and engage in a lot of dialogue on my campus about the use of credentials versus outcomes, and implementing something additional to muddy the waters in credentials. We have it turned on, and we do have some programs that use it and they do like it, but it's always a continual conversation of how many different pots are we going to put for students, to try and assess them and really make it unclear what message we're trying to do. I guess it's not really an opinion, but just it's conversations that we have on our campus, if they're worthwhile or not. But we do have programs that use the Canvas Credential / Badger and really like them. Mostly our student support programs are using them to validate students and the milestones that they're achieving in the smaller workshop type things. But it was just a food for thought.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's very helpful. Great. I also see, Matt, your point you made here about, right, the faculty workload and having them do both grading and then scoring for assessment or for assessing. And yeah, that's a whole very rich conversation we can have too. And that we have had at the SLO Talks, thanks to this team, the coaches, about how traditional grading, if you will, is sort of over here and SLO assessment is over here, and how we can really dare I say, a best practice. I mean, I guess I can't say that because not everyone's in agreement yet, but bringing those closer together, because as many have argued here and elsewhere here at the talks, traditional grading is fairly arbitrary in terms of the 100-point scale and what it means and so forth. And the coaches could point us to some of those talks, and I forgot the person who I think he has a book about it too. But yeah, so the beauty of Canvas is that you can bring those together, as Sarah demonstrated. You can have your grading, the faculty's grading rubric, and then you can link or import the assessment, like the PLO, let's say, assessment rubric, and then it becomes seamless, at least for the faculty, to do the scoring at the same time. It seems like that's a good way to leverage it. To minimize that extra work, to feel like it's an extra step. Of course, there's still the setup faculty have to go through, and that's where Sarah's providing some of the support to help them know and doing those trainings to show them how to set that up and do it so that it will then be in there. And that's what Amanda was saying, the preloading it and aligning the assessment with the grading, as Jarek said there in the conversation. Does anyone else want to chime in on that one? It's always that faculty buy-in is the big piece, really. And a lot of going back to what Alexandra was saying about thinking about even just pre-designing the setup on the dashboards, in the same way, you really have to think about that as you're exploring how this might work on your campus, how the setup could be the least cumbersome for faculty, because that's so important. If you lose them, you're just dead in the water. And if you go too fast, if you show too much, like Bernice was saying, if you just and people are overwhelmed, they're just going to tune out. They'll be, nope, never, and then you've lost them. So you really do have to be intentional and careful and plan it out, think through it. That's partly why we have this group. So we can, think through it together and talk through some of these things, see some of the lessons other people have learned and apply them and so forth. So anyone else want to chime in on that? It's really is important. So Matt, thanks for bringing that up and reiterating that. Yes, Joe Feldman, thank you. Grading for equity. Appreciate that. Eliza, thank you. And Amanda, thanks for the link. Any other folks want to chime in on that one? And then just to not miss that last point here as well, we want to also know how can Canvas, Canvas is very much set up because it's an LMS and it is about the academic and the curriculum. How can it be used for integrated assessments that are across programs or across divisions? Things like co-curricular programming and student affairs. And we're wondering if anyone has explored that yet. Obviously, we've done it a little bit. Well, should I say we've done it? I mean, I know a little bit more about Blackboard and how you can kind of create a course or an organization. They have that feature. So, I don't know how much Canvas might has. I guess it's sort of like it's a different type of course that you can set up for perhaps a program that has learning outcomes in student affairs, let's say. But anyone out there with experience in dabbling in that yet, because that's really important in interesting to me, especially integrated assessment is something I do here, which is really about the curricular and the co-curricular. I've been focusing mostly on our first year experience, which is, very important, but to take everything curricular and co-curricular and that whole sense of belonging and welcomeness and success, fostering success for students in the first year. But all across, we're talking about more integrated learning, service learning, things that we're integrating into the curriculum. So that's important to think, I think, about how we might be able to use Canvas for that as well. So if anyone's interested in that, also email me with that topic line and we can get together a group of folks doing that as well. I'm going to stop sharing, I think, so we can chat a little more. Or
you have our contact information slide.
Oh, yes. There we go. Yes, everyone's contact.
Right.
Let's be sure. And I did drop the slides into the chat. So you do have it also at the end. But that's everyone's yes. If you want to contact anyone individually about specific parts of our talk. And I see there's some more chat.
Michelle, did you drop in the documents that we were going to share?
All of it. Yep. Four documents altogether. 3 and then the PowerPoint slides.
Okay, great.
They're all in there. So what other and I'm just looking through the chat. Oh, wait, did I stop share? I meant to stop share. I closed my thing and then I'm like, wait, you guys are still little. So yeah, okay, the chat. Canvas credentials. Thank you, Amanda. Okay. So they're getting rid of the name, the brand, Badger altogether. That's gone. Okay.
Yeah, you can still find it behind, but you do have to reintegrate your Badger. It's a process, but yeah, you'll notice that it says Canvas credentials now.
Thank you. Thank you. Very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, just catching up on the chat. And how about in the Padlet? I think you brought those questions over, right, Amanda? Pretty much touched on most of those.
Yeah, we pretty much answered those.
Awesome. Coaches, any other thoughts from you all or anything I missed still in the chat here?
I think faculty buy-in seems to be always a consistent theme of conversation. And one of the methods of attack for this concern to me has always been just reiterating the importance of assessment and making sure that common base of knowledge is really clear to faculty that, yeah, totally get this is extra, and whatever methodology you're using to assess on your own institution, unless you can make that clear connection of the why, it's always going to be a pushback on faculty buy-in. But the more that connection in that loop is, this is going to make your life easier, because the more you look at your assessment quality and your assessment validity and reliability, it's going to make your teaching better, because you're not going to be pushing against the grain. You're going to teach and students are going to learn, and that's going to be fun to assess. That oversimplifies, I know, a whole lot for people going, it is not that easy. But that's just what I found on my campus.
Yeah, and it's beyond whatever technology you're using. It is needing that buy-in and that partnership and the support for faculty. And in many cases, we're doing a lot of the educating about assessment, because I think it still isn't in graduate programs where people are going and getting trained in their area of expertise so much. I hope it's making its way in there more, because even as a TA, hopefully they're seeing their faculty having to be involved in assessment, but there's a lot of room for that. Enrique, please jump in.
Just a point of inquiry. You mentioned that before Canvas, you were using Blackboard.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
On our campus, yes. For our LMS, yes.
So like what Amanda was saying, what was the buy-in from switching from Blackboard to Canvas?
For just the LMS, right? Because we weren't doing it for assessment with faculty, to my knowledge.
Oh, we were not doing it. Okay.
Yeah, no, with this, no. I mean, the assessment has always been outside, most of it at the program level, in the way I described that panel, sort of collecting course products from faculty. Of course, we have to get buy-in from that. And then having juries or panels of faculty teams who then score them. Yeah. And that's all done outside of a system.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to throw confusion about Blackboard.
So just to follow, if I may, on Amanda's comments, that's true. When it comes to the faculty buy-in, it all has to be relevant, right? And it all has to be for the benefit of the students. So what really matters is that, as we've been talking, you're absolutely right, Michelle. We have talked about during the Friday SLO Talks quite a bit about this. The importance of focus really on what it is that students learn rather than what it is that faculty do. So in other words, as long as we are focused, I think Amanda already articulated this point, as long as we are focused on what it is that students learn, that's what matters to us, and Canvas is just a tool, and there we go. So on top of it, we, historically, we have the syllabus that requires us, students have to do certain assignments, do the quizzes, do the homework, do the midterm. Those things are all good and important. What matters is what they learn in the process, and that's what needs to be documented. So I think that from that perspective, it really helps to keep this in place. Again, our presenters today have underscored the importance of collaboration and really making sure that this is not something that's just done ad hoc and for accreditation purposes or accountability measures that nobody looks into. So again, this is just oh gosh, fantastic work. I mean, I was just sitting here speechless. Really, this is just so much great work that's gone into this, and I'm just so very grateful that you guys were able to share all this.
Thanks. Yeah, and thanks for asking us. And I think when you first asked, I was like, oh, I don't know. Is it too early? But again, part of it is also the process, and we're all sort of struggling in different ways and levels. And it is about collaborating, whether it's at our own institutions or more broadly. I mean, that's exactly what this SLO Talks has been. And congratulations to coaches group, because it's grown so immensely. I found you guys early in the shutdown of the pandemic, and it was so great that you extended it, I think, beyond the California community colleges to other folks. And now we've got, everyone across the country, Virginia, Louisiana, all over, right? DC, right. I think New York, all of it. So it's really been great. And thank you all for providing such a great space and resource, and where people can connect like we did and create our group. So.
Perfect. And we do have all your contact information, right? So Bernice, Alexandra, Sarah, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, then you're available via email and so forth. Great. And someone just asked, what does it mean to join your group, right? Okay.
Right. Well, yeah, it just means you can get on the list. We'll send you the invitation for the meetings. And if it becomes really big, we'll figure out, again, like we said, we're just going to keep meeting as it's useful, and maybe there'll be some subgroups if folks want to focus in on specific topics, because there's, again, it's so complicated. There's so many pieces to it. There's the dashboard part, there's the Canvas, there's the faculty. So we'll just figure it out as we go. So if you're interested, yeah, you can at least get on the list and decide if you want to come. And would you add anything to that, Bernice? What else does it mean? We just get together.
Okay. So again, thank you very much. Thanks everyone who attended today's session. This was really absolutely fantastic. So thank you for your work, for your time, sharing of the expertise. Yes, as always, the videos are going to be published. I have developed this flyer that advertises the next event, and on the bottom there's the links to the recordings and PowerPoints and all the materials that are pertinent to the presenters. So, well, thank you very much. This concludes our webinar for today. We'll see you next week to talk more about instructional design.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.